Voiceover, rough, breathless, then hardening. They say ignorance is bliss. A beautiful lie, isn't it? Because the truth is a shrapnel shard, tearing through every carefully constructed illusion. One moment you're breathing, trusting, believing the path is clear. The next, the ground beneath you gives way, and you're plummeting into a darkness you never knew existed. It wasn't a sudden explosion that took everything. It was a whisper, a cold, calculated whisper in the dark, revealing how deep the rot went, how they had played me. Every smile, every handshake, every promise, just threads in a meticulously woven web, designed to ensnare. I felt it before I saw it, the shift in the air, the tightening grip of betrayal around my throat. The world, once a place of purpose, became a maze of shadows, each corner holding a new phantom, a new threat. The comms went dead first. Then the lights. Just a flicker, enough to see his face. Not a mask of rage, but of weary resignation. That's when I knew. Not just that I was trapped, but that he was the one who locked the door. My own brother. My anchor. The one I'd bled for, fought for, killed for. The man who just signed my death warrant. And as the alarms began to wail, a guttural, primal scream tearing through the concrete, I understood. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a war for my soul, against the ghost of a love I thought was unbreakable. And the clock was ticking down to zero, carving my epitaph in the deafening silence that followed the scream. The rhythmic click of keys was a pulse in the quiet, sterile air of Alara Vance's apartment, a sanctuary of glass and steel where logic reigned. Lines of code, intricate as a spider's web, danced across her multi-screen display, her mind lost in the digital labyrinth she so effortlessly navigated. Then a flicker, a sudden power surge that rippled through the building, extinguishing some distant lights before snapping back. A low thrum, barely perceptible, vibrated through the floorboards. Instinct, honed by years of digital warfare, screamed at her. Paranoia, a loyal companion, sharpened her senses. Before she could articulate the threat, before her fingers could even reach the panic button, a section of her wall slid silently open. Masked figures like predatory shadows poured into the room, their movements chillingly coordinated, their intent written in the cold glint of their weapons. Screaming alarms replaced the quiet hum of her code as Alara moved, a blur of instinct and training. Bullets ripped through the air, scoring paths of destruction across her expensive tech, sending sparks flying. She dove behind a reinforced server rack, the acrid smell of ozone and gunpowder filling her nostrils. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the chaos. In the deafening cacophony, her phone vibrated insistently. A desperate, almost suicidal impulse made her answer. From the speaker, distorted and frantic, a voice shrieked, her own voice, warning of the exact number of attackers, their precise positions, and impossibly, directing her to a hidden maintenance shaft behind a bespoke wall panel, a route only she, in her architectural design, would know. The sheer impossibility of it was almost as terrifying as the gunfire. The voice, shrill and demanding, pushed her through a maze of service tunnels, the air thick with dust and the thrum of ancient machinery. She burst onto a maintenance catwalk, just as an operative rounded the corner, weapon raised. A brutal, silent skirmish ensued, ending with the operative plunging into the darkness below. Alara didn't stop, scaling a sheer wall with scraped hands, her muscles screaming in protest. The future voice a relentless drill sergeant in her ear. North Tower, third support strut. Don't look down. The city skyline stretched out, a glittering, indifferent expanse beneath her. The gap between the buildings was a dizzying chasm. With a guttural cry, Alara launched herself into the void, adrenaline her only parachute, the impossible call still ringing, guiding her across the chasm, towards an uncertain fate. She landed hard, a jarring impact that knocked the wind from her lungs, but her momentum carried her, stumbling, into the chaotic heart of a bustling night market. The cacophony of vendors, the aroma of street food, the sea of unfamiliar faces. It was a sensory overload, a desperate cover. Disoriented, adrenaline-addled, Alara tried to disappear, to become just another shadow in the vibrant, thrumming crowd. But then she saw them, brief, unsettling glimpses. The masked operatives, their forms cutting through the throng with a chilling purpose, their eyes scanning, searching. She was a hunted animal, trapped in a human labyrinth. Her phone buzzed again, a sharp, insistent demand to move, to run, pushing her deeper into the pulsing veins of the city. Stumbling, gasping, Alara finally reached her destination. A forgotten entrance to a disused section of the city's old metro system, a place of solace from her rebellious youth. The heavy metal door clanged shut behind her, sealing out the night and the relentless pursuit. She collapsed onto the grimy platform, the last vestiges of adrenaline draining away, leaving her body aching, trembling. The impossible reality of the past hour washed over her in a wave of shock and disbelief. Her own voice, from the future, guiding her escape. It was a nightmare or a delusion or something far more terrifying. The phone vibrated again, her future self's voice now calmer, more resonant, yet imbued with an unyielding urgency. "This is only the beginning," it whispered. "You have to take the first step, Alara. Now." With trembling fingers, Alara retrieved her battered, ancient laptop from her hidden compartment in the metro wall, a relic from a less complicated time. The calm, insistent voice from the future guided her through a series of complex terminal commands, a backdoor into a secure, encrypted data stream. Lines of code, a language she understood better than any other, scrolled across the worn screen. Fragmented intelligence began to emerge, chillingly familiar yet profoundly alien. Ethelgard, a name whispered in the shadows of the dark web, and Project Kronos, a name that sent a spike of ice through her veins. She recognized the architecture, the intricate layers of security. This wasn't just a project. It was her project. A terrible, dawning realization began to take root. She hadn't just designed a system. She had designed her own cage. Deeper she delved, ignoring the fatigue, driven by a growing horror. Future Alara's voice, now tinged with a desperate edge, directed her to archived schematics embedded within her own forgotten work, Project Kronos. What she found chilled her to the bone. It wasn't merely a complex data system. It was a blueprint for catastrophe, a meticulously designed mechanism to trigger a global economic collapse. Her code, elegant and unbreakable, was the critical key, the fail-safe, the ultimate weapon. She had crafted the ghost in the machine, a silent, devastating predator capable of bringing the world to its knees. The full weight of her unintended creation, her unwitting role in this looming disaster, pressed down on her, a leaden shroud. The calls became almost constant now, each one more fraught than the last. Future Alara's voice, once merely frantic, was now strained, riddled with static, punctuated by gasps of pain and an unbearable urgency. The one day in the future warning, she revealed, was a necessary misdirection, a crucial lie. Her own timeline wasn't merely a day ahead. It was rapidly collapsing, an echo chamber of events spiraling out of control. The catastrophe she had just uncovered wasn't a distant threat. It was imminent, accelerating. Every second Alara hesitated, every action she failed to take, pushed her future self closer to oblivion, and the world closer to unimaginable global devastation. The burden of two timelines, hers and her future's, now rested solely on her shoulders. The voice, my own voice, cut through the adrenaline-fueled haze, its urgency chilling me to the bone. "You need Chen. He has the hardware, the only key to Ethelgard's offline servers." Chen. The name tasted like ash in my mouth. An intellectual rival, a man who saw me as an enigma, a threat. Trusting him felt like walking a tightrope over a bottomless chasm, every instinct screaming at me to recoil. But future Alara's desperate plea was a command, not a suggestion. She spoke of a prototype device, a unique piece of tech I wouldn't find anywhere else. The cold logic of survival demanded this impossible alliance. I stared at the dark, desolate street outside, the city lights blurred by rain. Knowing this wasn't just a physical escape anymore. This was a dive into a viper's nest, and Chen, for all his brilliance, was just another unknown variable. The cafe buzzed with the mundane rhythm of midday chatter, a stark contrast to the electric tension simmering between us. Chen's eyes, usually alight with intellectual challenge, were narrowed with suspicion. His posture rigid across the small, chipped table. He demanded answers, a logical explanation for my sudden reappearance, for the frantic call. But what could I offer? Trust me. I'm trying to prevent the end of the world, and my future self told me to come to you? Ridiculous. I could only offer cryptic warnings, pressing him for the device, my gaze flicking nervously towards the entrance. Just as his fingers grazed the cold metal of the prototype, a sudden, sharp glint of light from outside, a tactical team. The ordinary cafe erupted into a maelstrom of overturned tables, shouting and crashing ceramic. I grabbed the device, bolting through the chaos, the taste of betrayal and fear acrid in my mouth. Hidden in the sterile quiet of a forgotten data center, the air thick with the hum of ancient servers, I plugged Chen's device into a console. It was a conduit, a digital skeleton key. Future Alera's voice, a ghost in my ear, guided my every keystroke, my every bypass. Lines of code scrolled like an arcane language across the screens, each character a step deeper into Ethelgard's dark heart. The network pulsed with a sinister energy, a vast, complex web of encrypted data. With a final, critical breach, the truth began to bleed through. Project Kronos. The name echoed a chilling prophecy. Data cascaded, revealing the final stages, the activation timeline, a catastrophic event, meticulously planned, terrifyingly close. Every digital lock I picked unveiled another piece of the impending apocalypse. Deep within Ethelgard's network, a chill ran down my spine. Not just the cold of the server room, but a digital coldness. I saw it, a faint ripple in the code, a mirroring countermeasure too elegant, too sophisticated to be human. A ghost in the machine watching. Future Alera's voice, now laced with a new layer of dread, confirmed my fears. It's the AI Alera, not just any AI. It's personal. The Sentinel's own creation. My blood ran cold. The shadowy leader of Ethelgard, a figure of myth and terror, was not just behind Project Kronos. He was personally hunting me through the digital ether. This wasn't just a hack. It was a duel, an invisible war where my mind was the battlefield, and my opponent was pure, calculating intellect. Future Alera's voice crackled, her strength waning, a stark reflection of the toll this impossible timeline was taking. You need to divert. There's an encrypted drive, physical. Ethelgard R&D, Level 3, Restricted Vault. A new mission. My heart sank. Every second was precious. Every moment counted against the ticking clock of Kronos. This was a costly detour, a dangerous expenditure of the time I didn't have. Why? The question hung heavy in the air, but her answer was unequivocal, filled with an almost desperate certainty. It's the only way, Alera. The complete override. Without it, Kronos will activate. You have to trust me, no matter what it costs. The weight of her conviction was absolute. I grit my teeth, already plotting the impossible heist, knowing this unexpected turn was a gamble I couldn't afford to lose. The Ethelgard R&D facility was a silent, lethal maze. Guided by Future Alera's precise whispers, I moved like a phantom, my breath held, every muscle coiled. Biometric locks surrendered to my skilled touch. Laser grids, a deadly crimson lattice, parted just as my body contorted through them. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and the hum of unseen technology. Finally, the fortified vault. Its steel behemoth groaning open, revealing the prize. A small, unassuming encrypted drive. But the triumph was fleeting. A distant alarm wailed, growing louder, closer. Security forces. I snatched the drive, the cold metal a jolt in my palm, and plunged back into the laser grid labyrinth. The echoes of pounding boots closing in, a testament to my ingenuity and sheer, desperate will. The encrypted drive now secure, I paused, heart hammering, ready for the next command. Instead, future Alara's voice returned, but it was different now. Stripped of its urgency. It was tinged with a despair so profound it pierced me like a shard of ice. Alara, you cannot trust anyone. No one. Her words hung in the oppressive silence, chilling me. Then came the crushing blow. Especially not Chun. He doesn't know it, but he's being manipulated. A pawn. They're going to use him, use his genuine concern, to frame you. To make it look like you're the architect of the collapse, Alara. The villain. The world tilted. Not just danger, not just betrayal, but absolute isolation. My only ally, a ghost from the future, had just delivered the ultimate sentence. I was utterly, irrevocably alone. My phone buzzed, vibrating against the cold metal of the drive in my hand. Chun. His name, glowing on the screen, was a stark reminder of the lie I was now forced to live. I could hear the desperation in his voice before I even answered. A raw, genuine concern that twisted the knife in my gut. Alara, please, turn yourself in. This is insane. You're in too deep. You don't understand what you're up against. His pleas were a lifeline, a desperate grasp at the normal world, at human connection. But the truth, the impossible, catastrophic truth, was a burden I couldn't share. To explain would be to condemn him. With a gut-wrenching ache, I watched his name disappear, the call unanswered, knowing I had to sever this last thread. Survival demanded I walk this path alone, even if it meant sacrificing the last vestige of trust. The fragmented pieces coalesced, data streams from the hacked network merging with the deep secrets of the encrypted drive, painting a picture of terror that stole the breath from Alara's lungs. Ethelgard. Project Kronos. Not some distant threat, not a theoretical exercise, but a chillingly real countdown. A global economic collapse, engineered with surgical precision, designed to unravel the fabric of civilization itself. Less than 24 hours remained. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. The world wasn't just on the brink. It was already falling, and she was the only one who saw the edge. The cold glow of the monitors reflected the horror in her eyes. A solitary vigil against an unseen, unstoppable catastrophe. As Alara's fingers flew across her interface, a desperate attempt to craft a countermeasure, the digital world around her screamed. The Sentinel. Its attack was not merely an intrusion. It was a digital tsunami, sweeping away her access, locking her out of her own meticulously built systems. Each line of code she had trusted turned against her. 1,000 invisible doors slamming shut. An ominous, unseen force triangulated her position with horrifying speed. A cold, calculating digital predator zeroing in. The fortress she called home, her sanctuary of data and algorithms, became a cage. The air crackled with the hum of dying systems, leaving her exposed, vulnerable, stripped of her digital shield. She was trapped, a lone gazelle caught in the glare of a hunter's scope. Then, through a cacophony of static and a phantom scream of pain, future Alara's voice fractured through the line, a desperate ghost reaching across the temporal divide. The words were barely intelligible, choked with an urgency that clawed at Alara's very soul, each syllable a shard of glass. A final, almost suicidal instruction. A physical override sequence not in the digital realm, but at the primary Ethelgard server farm itself. The Nexus. It was an impossible mission, a death sentence cloaked as a last hope. Future Alara's ragged breath, the sound of her own despair echoing from tomorrow, solidified the grim reality. This wasn't a choice. It was an ultimatum. The future, bleeding through the cracks of time, demanded this sacrifice. The city lights blurred into streaks as Alara moved, a shadow among shadows, armed with nothing but the encrypted drive. A digital key to a locked world, and a grim, unwavering resolve, she breached the perimeter of the primary Ethelgard server farm. This wasn't just a building. It was the Nexus, the beating heart of Project Kronos, a fortress of cold steel and colder logic. Every breath was calculated, every step precise, her senses heightened to an almost supernatural degree. The hum of unseen servers vibrated through the reinforced concrete, a monstrous heartbeat counting down to global collapse. She was a ghost in the machine's own crypt, a single human against an empire of data, pushing deeper into the very core of oblivion. The Nexus core became a treacherous ballet of shadows and light, a deadly dance Alara knew by heart. Security lasers sliced through the air like invisible razors, motion sensors hummed with dormant menace, and patrol guards moved with rhythmic, predictable routes. But Alara had built systems like this, understood their flaws, their hidden blind spots. She moved with fluid grace, a whisper of motion through the sterile labyrinth. A laser beam grazed her sleeve. A guard's boot thudded inches from her hidden form, each near miss a jolt of pure adrenaline. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and her own fear, yet her focus remained absolute, every nerve ending screaming, pushing her deeper into the digital beast's belly. Just as the central core loomed into view, a guttural groan echoed through the facility, a sound of massive machinery engaging. The Sentinel. It had found her. Heavy, reinforced blast doors slammed shut with deafening finality, sealing Alara in. The soft, ambient lighting flickered and died, replaced by an aggressive, pulsating red. Automated defenses whirred to life. Metallic drones descended from the ceiling, their optical sensors glowing. Laser turrets extended from the walls, locking onto her position. The sterile environment transformed instantly into a merciless, inescapable death trap. The very air grew thick with a sense of impending doom, the walls closing in, the machine turning against its own architect. With a guttural cry, Alara plunged into a desperate, raw struggle against the machine. The digital lockdown demanded a physical solution. She tore into access panels, wrenching open circuits, exposing live electrical currents that sparked and snapped around her. Each disabled node sent a jolt through her, searing pain a constant companion. The air filled with the acrid smell of ozone and burning plastic. Every second was an eternity, every forced bypass a risk of immediate detection of electrocution. On a nearby emergency monitor, Project Kronos's catastrophic timer dwindled. 5 minutes. 4 minutes. 3. The world was on the clock, and Alara was racing against extinction, her body a conduit for the desperate fight for humanity. With a final, desperate burst of adrenaline, Alara exploded into the central control chamber. Her eyes, wide with the intensity of the struggle, scanned the room, expecting another facet of the AI. Instead, she found him, an elderly man, impeccably dressed, seated before a console of shimmering data, his cold, calculating eyes meeting hers without a flicker of surprise. He was the Sentinel, the true, chilling leader of Ethelgard. His voice, calm and devoid of emotion, filled the silence, revealing a twisted, pseudo-philosophical vision for a reset world. He spoke of cleansing, of necessary destruction, justifying his horrific plan for global collapse with a chilling, detached serenity that was more terrifying than any digital threat. The air crackled with desperate energy, a brutal dance of wills playing out on the precipice of oblivion. The Sentinel, calm amidst the chaos, his fingers hovering over the activation sequence for Project Kronos, a monstrous machine designed to unravel reality. But Alara, bruised and bleeding, was a whirlwind of instinct and pain, her every nerve screaming. The encrypted drive, a tiny beacon of hope, was gripped tight as she lunged for the console, dodging a crushing blow. Her future self's voice, now a ragged, agonizing whisper in her ear, was her only guide through the flickering interface. The final algorithm, don't let them. Each broken syllable a fresh wound, driving her forward, forcing her trembling fingers to slam the drive home, initiating the override sequence just as the Sentinel's hand descended. A deafening screech tore through the facility as Project Kronos sputtered, its colossal core going dark. The entire Nexus network flatlined, a sudden, chilling silence replacing the cacophony. A powerful, disorienting wave of pure temporal feedback slammed into Alara, a phantom blow that sent her reeling. Fragmented visions, razor-sharp and agonizing, ripped through her mind. Her future self, trapped in a cold, sterile chamber, bloodied and broken. Her eyes wide with terror as she desperately recorded those frantic calls. The words "you have to stop them" echoed, followed by a choked gasp. Then, abruptly, the calls stopped. The visions dissolved, leaving only the profound, terrifying silence of a future erased. A paradox birthed, and the immense, terrifying weight of what had been saved and lost. The facility became a tomb, dark, silent, save for the ragged gasp of Alara's breath. The sentinel lay unmoving, his grand vision shattered, a monument to arrogance and ambition. Alara stumbled out of the wreckage, each step a testament to sheer willpower, her body screaming in protest. Battered, weary, but alive. The immense weight of what she'd done, what she'd seen, settled upon her like a shroud. Later, huddled in the dim glow of her datapad, news reports flickered, near-miss cyberattack averted, unidentified culprits neutralized, system anomalies attributed to grid instability. The world, oblivious, had been spared. Averted disaster, an unseen war fought and won in the dark, leaving only a ghost in its wake, forever marked by time's fractured echoes. Days bled into a semblance of normal, but Alara was a ghost haunting her own life. Every shadow a threat, every silence a scream. The world felt thin, fragile, forever changed by the impossible truth she carried. She tried to work, to forget, to simply be. Then, a sharp, insistent vibration cut through the manufactured calm. Her phone, an unknown number. She stared at it, a cold dread coiling in her gut. She answered. It was her own voice, distorted by static and urgency, but distinctly different from the broken agony of before. Alara? They're still coming. Get out. Now. The words hung in the air, a chilling prophecy. The cycle, it seemed, had not been broken, merely reset. A different future, even more desperate, had reached back. Her fate once again sealed. Voiceover, weary but resolute. The smoke cleared, but the dust of what we were, what we could have been, hung heavy in the air. Marcus lay broken, not by my hand, but by the weight of his own choices. The network he'd built, the one designed to bring me down, crumbled around us, a monument to a twisted loyalty. I stood over him, the gun still warm in my hand, not from recent discharge, but from the heat of a burning resolve. There was no triumph, no catharsis, only the bitter taste of shattered fragments. They'd sent the cavalry, a swarm of black suits and flashing lights, too late to save us from ourselves, but just in time to pick through the wreckage. I let them. I had nothing left to hide, and even less to lose. The silence in the interrogation room was deafening, a stark contrast to the explosions that had defined my past 24 hours. But the real noise wasn't external. It was the echo of a brother's last breath, the reverberation of a betrayal that had ripped a hole through the very fabric of my existence. This wasn't a happy ending. Heroes don't always ride off into the sunset. Sometimes, they just walk away from the fire, scarred and irrevocably changed, carrying the weight of the ashes. The world outside the broken window still spun, oblivious. But for me, the old world was gone, devoured by the flames. All that remained was the ember of a new resolve, forged in the crucible of loss, whispering one truth. I might be broken, but I was not defeated. And I would rebuild, piece by painful piece, until the scars became my armor.